Hey folks, welcome back to I am Developer.live. I'm your host Nick Taylor, and today I am hanging out with BekahHW. How you doing, Becca?
Hey Nick, I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's midweek. I'm a little tired in a good way. I work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning. And Wednesdays is, I mean, it's always hit training, so it's like your whole body still, but it's
Mhm.
more Wednesdays focused more on legs, so there was like a lot of like just a lot of stuff with bands and weights today. So it's like basically I won't be using my standing desk today is what I'm getting at. So,
Leg day
what
is my
about you?
favorite day.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's like squats are my go-to. I know you're a fan of those too. But yeah, how's your day going?
It's going really well. I also went to the gym. We did some pause squats today, which are always killer.
Okay.
Um, so
Is a pause squat, is that like kind of doing like on the wall where you're just like calisthenics or?
so it's a back squat with the bar,
Okay.
and then you pause at the bottom for 3 seconds, and then you stand up.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that extra little hang definitely works it.
It's tough.
Cool,
By that
cool.
seventh rep on my second set, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting back up.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you. It's the kind of thing. Well, I haven't used a squat rack since the pandemic because I've been working out in my like I made a gym in my garage, but I'm definitely gonna be joining back the university gym down the street from me and getting back into the squat rack because it's like the thing I miss the most, like
Yeah.
that, and also getting back into pull ups and stuff because like I can put a bar in my garage, but it's like I can't really. It's like the ceiling's like 7 and a bit feet,
Yeah.
so there's not much I can do. Like I'd be banging my head basically. It's basically not a good setup for it. So those are kind of two things that I'm looking for to get back to, and just like oh hey Alex, um yeah, just like like anytime I do leg day like with squats and stuff, it's like every time I get out of the rack, I'm like walking very gingerly, not in a bad way. Just it's like, don't expect me to do anything super productive after I've been in a squat rack.
Yep.
So yeah, awesome. I would love to talk about the gym all day with you because I'm sure we could. But for folks who don't know who you are, can you maybe just give a kind of a brief, like, I guess, mini origin story of who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I am a career changer. I spent 10 years teaching college English before coming into tech. And prior to that, I was actually a community organizer for an environmental nonprofit. So I feel like community runs in my blood. I've got
Okay.
4 kids, and I went to a boot camp and came into tech um, almost 4 years ago, I think. It's funny because I was
Okay.
looking at my blog, and tomorrow will be like the anniversary of the very first blog post I ever wrote in tech, and it might be 5 years. It's 4 or 5.
Okay.
And that's when I was
That's super
still
cool.
learning. And so
Okay.
then I started the community virtual coffee, and now I am a community and team building consultant.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, you're doing great work in this space, and this is how I met you actually. Well, I remember I didn't know who you were, and like when I used to work at Dev 2, uh, they acquired Code Newbies, and Code Newbies used to have a pretty frequent. I think it was almost every Sunday, or maybe it was every Sunday, just like a
Wednesday
oh
chats and
Wednesday.
Sunday check-ins.
That's it. And I forget which one it was, but you posted something there, and then I responded like, uh, just no idea who you were. I was just like, try this or something, and then I forget where I came across it, but at some point I saw a tweet of yours that said, "Hey, does anybody want to meet? For a virtual coffee?" And then you know, I DM'd you, and
Yeah.
it's just like very like in the beginnings, it was very raw. So it was just like, oh, here's the Zoom link, and then like let's meet up, and but it was super cool. I mean, for myself at least, prior to the pandemic, I never really hung out with people on the internet, not because I was better than that. It's just like most of the people I hung out with, it was just in real life. And then pandemic kind of changed that. I mean, I was working remote even before the pandemic, but yeah, just like meeting folks like yourself. And there's a lot of people in virtual coffee because it's going on. This started in 2020, I think April maybe.
April
So
of
like,
2020.
yeah, so like we've known each other for almost literally 3 years now, and it's a great space. There's a lot of other. I definitely have my favorite communities, which I'll drop a post about that later. But yeah, no, it's just great what you built there. Like I think it really helped a lot of people. It helped myself too. Even I had a bit of a rough patch during the pandemic, so it was nice just having the people supporting there. And not just tech. Like I mean, obviously a lot of what we talk about revolves around tech because that's what we work in. But yeah, just doesn't always have to be in a. That's one of the aspects I like about it as well. The other communities do this too, but I think we're definitely gonna dig into community here. But it's like I I really like it when you can you know kind of be your whole self. You don't need
Yeah.
to because like I know I'm already going on a tangent here, but like when people network, which I still don't like that term, but like it's like, oh, I got to go to a JavaScript meetup because I'm trying to get a job and I need to meet other people that do JavaScript, and that's good, but like it always doesn't have to be that, and you don't always have to be in tech communities for to meet people too. So it's just throwing that out there. Oh, hey Jessica, how you doing? Jessica Wilkins is in the chat along with Alex.
Hey, Jessica. I don't see Jessica in my chat. Interesting.
Oh wait, oh she's on YouTube. Sorry, I've been doing this restream for like a few streams now, so uh, yeah, it's in the chat. But anyways,
Got
um,
it.
but yeah, so like let's talk a bit about community. So like you said, you kind of have community in your bones from what you were saying, and virtual coffee. I'm curious, like not what compelled you, but like it's kind of like a hey, random people on the internet come chat with me kind of, like I know that's not the vibe it is, but like I was curious how you felt like starting that, or like even trying to approach people with like, because obviously the internet can be a terrible place too. Like I'm a white guy, so like I really do not have that many problems on the internet, but I know for women for sure there's definitely always issues. I don't want to go into that, but yeah.
Yeah. So, for me, and I've grown a lot in the last 3 years. And so, for sure, if you would have talked to me 3 years ago, I would say I'm a really shy introvert and I'm afraid of strangers. And I feel like I lost a little bit of that. I worked through it apparently because now I talk to strangers in the airport and I feel like that's the bar. Like if you talk to strangers in the airport, then you
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 made
got
it.
something else
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
literally called my dad from an airport. I was like, Dad, I talked to a stranger. And he was like, Isn't it great? Because he just talks to everybody. And I was like, Well, it wasn't great, but like I did it. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but so during the pandemic, I just lost my job and my kids were sent home from school. That was my first job. I never had an interview before. It was a conversation. And then I was interviewing for the first time and I had my kids home from school. So they're like literally walking in and out of the interviews. This was just,
Okay.
I was crying every night. Like, what is going on? Like this doesn't make sense. The world doesn't make any sense right now. And I came into tech because I had gone through a trauma. And one of the things that I learned through that experience was it's never good to isolate. And like we were all
Okay.
literally isolated, right? Like we were
Yeah.
isolating ourselves, not talking to anyone, not being around anyone. But one of the great things is the internet is a safe space, safe from germs. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. It's true.
safe from spreading the coronavirus. And so I thought, well, I'm not the only one that's experiencing this. So I'm just going to put it out there. Does anybody want to meet up for virtual coffee? And
Yeah.
people did. And then we found that, it wasn't, we were all struggling through the pandemic, but it was beyond the pandemic. Like we were able to meet each other and understand each other as human beings. We didn't always talk about tech. In fact, I think in the early days,
Yeah.
tech was like the secondary topic in almost every conversation.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
just happened to be from tech because I put it out there on Twitter, and everyone I followed on Twitter and who followed me pretty much was in tech. So I just kind of like
Yeah.
grew into that thing. And then, we found that there were things that we enjoyed doing together. And prior to the experience, I don't think I ever worked with anyone outside of my time zone. So I was like
Okay.
strictly East. I still like sometimes I'll message Nick. I'm like, can you translate this time zone for me? Because I'm not really sure what it means. I Googled it. I did, I promise, but I got to double
Yeah.
check
Yeah.
that. Um, so like having that experience, there's no other place that you would have the experience to meet people from, I don't even know, we have at least 13 different time zones. I don't know how many time zones there
Yeah.
are in the world, but we cover a lot of them. One of our friends, Brett, comes on Tuesday mornings, and he's from Australia, so it's not
Yeah.
Tuesday for him, it's already Wednesday, and I think it's like really late on
Yeah.
Wednesdays
Yeah.
or something. So, otherwise I never would have had the experience to meet Brett and most of the people who I consider really good friends right now.
Yeah, no, same here. Yeah, and yeah, Brett's a trooper. He's not only is he from the future, but future late in the evening. It's yeah, it's ti time zones can definitely be difficult. I mean, uh, like at Netlify right now, like our time zones, like they're kind of based on teams. So like most like one of my coworkers is in Montreal with me, and then the rest are in Europe, but like UK and uh, other places around there. But so there is a difference, but it's not as big as a gap. Like when I worked at Dev2, there was like the most of the team was originally from the United States, so they were typically like mid or like West Coast. There was some East Coast too, but then like I was working with people in like South Africa, Thailand, India, and so like it's definitely a challenge, and one of the things that is a great skill to have, like community or just like in general, is being able to have this asynchronous communication. And it's super important
Yeah.
for if you want to get a job in a remote world, for sure. But yeah, just it's an interesting skill to get good at. I think I'm pretty decent at it now. But oh, hey, James Quick's in
Hey,
the chat.
James.
Hey, James. Yeah, no, thanks for popping by. But yeah, you make it work. But sometimes there was situations where it's just like we would take turns where it's like, okay, like this particular one, meeting, we're gonna do it late at night for people on the East Coast. It's not all the time. It was like our all hands. So like, you'd make trade-offs like that, which I think I was okay with that because I'm like, I still consider it a privilege to be able to work remote, even though a lot of people are working remote now. So, having to stay up super late one night a month doesn't really bother me. It's not convenient, but it's definitely not a deal breaker for me. But yeah, it's tough. But yeah. So you create a virtual coffee, and like you've been working in the community space. I mean, you've been a developer as well, but you've also been working in the community space for, I'd say, the last 3 years. Like you were a community manager at, the name's escaping me, but you've worked at another place. It's a Web3 company briefly.
Yeah,
I think you're
I
doing
did a
some
contract
contract
with
work
a
there.
Web3
Yeah.
company, and I did some stuff there.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I've been building community, and it's always interesting to see and understand the different needs of communities, right? Because every community is yeah, I did a stint in
Yeah. Yeah.
Web3, James.
Yeah.
um, every community has a different personality, right? And I think that one of the big takeaways from all of the community experiences that I've had is that communities are also living and breathing, right? Because they're made of
Yeah.
human beings. And so what might define your community today or what it might look like today is not necessarily what it's going to look like tomorrow. And so it's important
Yeah.
to remember that your community is going to grow and you need to figure out how that impacts you as somebody who is running or supporting the community. Where do you need to
Mhm.
go? What do you need to be thinking of? What support structures do you need to put in place as you kind of see that growth coming along? Or if there's a change there, like, okay, is this the kind of change that we want to make, or does this
Mhm.
take us away from being the community that we want to be?
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of a good segue to like, uh, kind of, it's a few questions we can definitely tackle them all if you want. But like, I guess like first, hey Kai, how you doing? I guess first thing is like, what do you think makes a good community? And then like, obviously not going to give away all the secret sauce because you do consulting, but like what are like some kind of like good things to put in place to to create a healthy community as well.
I think one of the things, and there's different types of communities, right? Like there are fan club communities, there's Lego builder communities, there are tech communities. So identifying what the purpose of the community is going to make it a little bit different for what makes a healthy community. But I think overall, having respect for each other is the most important thing that you can do in any type of community. And I've been
Yeah.
thinking a lot about this lately, and maybe I'm going to write a blog post, but I don't have it like totally thought out in my head. But the communities are not about one person, right? They're not
Mhm.
a bunch of individuals. There are a bunch of individuals there, but when you're a community, you're one unit together. And so, if you are thinking about the health of a community or whether or not it's a strong community, yeah, I think that you need to look at it in that way. Like, do you function as a unit? Is everybody
Yeah.
there to support each other? Or is there someone that's standing out and saying, like, hey, this is about me and
Mhm.
this needs to be done, even though it doesn't impact the other 500 people or whatever in the community? When you
Yeah.
start looking at each person need by need, then it becomes a different situation. It becomes more like a mentorship environment. And I'm not saying don't look at the needs of each individual community member, but I think that
Yeah.
you really have to gauge, okay, how does this benefit the overall unit of the community, us
Yeah.
together, and how we support each other? And especially when you're looking to the future, like, are we growing in this direction because this person is the loudest in the group? Or
Mhm.
does this not serve the rest of the community? And so really finding that, I think that's one of the things that I've learned throughout um, all of the community building that I've done back to when I was a community organizer, because often the loudest voices are the ones that are heard the most but don't necessarily
Yeah.
represent the good of the entire community. So I think that, like, pulling that back, looking at how strong the community is everybody respecting each other and willing to learn and grow together? Like, that's the kind of community that I enjoy being a part of and helping grow.
Yeah. No, no,
You
yeah.
asked me
Love
another
that.
question.
Yeah, I guess kind of like and well, yeah, I'll get to that. It was about like what are some things to put in place
Mm,
set up a community potentially for success. But I was just gonna mention what you were saying, like supporting other people and stuff. It's another thing that people might not realize unless you're a volunteer in the community
yeah.
is, I mean, unless it's some kind of paid community where you're literally paid to run the community, that's a different thing. But like for example, virtual coffee, it's 100% volunteer based. I mean, there's definitely like GitHub sponsors and stuff to bring some money in to pay for some things, but like the majority of what's going on in virtual coffee is literally all community driven volunteers. And so like when it comes to scaling stuff, like not that I mean scaling humans, but like if you're saying like, oh well, we need to support these 10 people for something, it's like we have to also remember that there's only so many people, and it's their, obviously these people enjoy contributing to the community, but it's, that or like being a moderator. These are things that take up people's time, and so like you also don't want to make it a time suck for people. Like you want people to enjoy being in the community even if they're volunteering. So it's like I think it's one of the things that makes community potentially tough is like, I think getting it up and running, not that that's easy necessarily, but like once you have it running, like you were saying, like we've got to make sure like people, aren't robots, things change over time. So like, we have not necessarily accommodate that, but like, this kind of ties into the whole moderation stuff maybe, but we can talk more about that if in a bit maybe, but yeah, I like the other question I said was yeah, I'm curious like in your thoughts, again without giving away all the secret consulting sauce, but like what are some like good things to put in place to potentially make a community successful?
I think that one of the most important things, and this goes over to the conversation about core skills too, is you have to have
Okay.
good, clear communication, right? And there's different forms of communication, but I think some of the things that are important is one, having clear paths of communication, and part of
Yeah.
that starts with onboarding. Community onboarding is a really important thing. How do you bring new members into the community? Once they're there, what do they do? Because a lot of times
Okay.
there are communities where people come in and they do one thing and that's it. Like you kind of lose that momentum. So if you want to keep those community members there, you can't just let them do the thing and then totally drop off that communication. You have to be able to maintain that momentum, show them the path, like, yes, this is what you do, what you start, and then this is a thing that you can do next, or we'd like to
Yeah.
amplify your work here or help you grow in this way. And so letting
Hmm.
people know what that is really important. Um, the second part of communication well, still on clear paths of communication, who do they talk to when there's an issue, right? I think that's
Hmm.
really important no matter what community you're in. Like maybe you join a club of fisher people who go fishing, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
who do I learn how to use the bait, or where are we going to meet up to go fishing this Saturday? Like you have to know who to ask the question to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also I don't know anybody that has a fishing group. I just made that up. So if you do know one, let me know. Yes, James knows
Yeah.
a group of fishers. Let me know. Fisher people. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
Um,
have there's guys I used to play rugby with that they go ice fishing in the winter, but to be honest, it's not really about ice fishing. It's just an excuse to bring beer into some cold area that's
yep.
enclosed, and if fishing happens, it happens, I guess. But anyways, I
Maybe I
digress.
should
I
use
digress.
knitting or something. I don't know. Sorry. I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, James is saying
um,
there's a lot of excuses to drink beer. This is true. That's facts there.
how
Facts.
about a beer drinking club? I know for sure that there are things like that. So,
Yeah, yeah. For sure.
um, okay, so that's important. Know who to talk to. The other thing that's important, being a good listener. So, if you are one of the people who is a moderator or a maintainer or a leader, then you should beer drinking club sounds like a problem. That's why we disguise it as something else. Beer connoisseurs or something. That seems like the right way to go.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
sorry, distracting myself with the chat.
No, it's all
Um,
good. It's all good. I
being a
love
good listener.
it.
It's really important to listen to what your community is saying and offer opportunities for feedback. And I think I'm paying attention. I think that one of the important things there is sometimes you get feedback that's hard feedback, right? That
Yeah.
it sounds like a criticism of you personally, and it's not, right? So the first role should not be to respond to criticism that you received. The first rule should be listen to it,
Mhm.
understand what the person is saying, and then take some time to think it over and then respond to that thing. And I
Yeah.
find that oftentimes when I take the time, then it starts to remove that initial defensiveness that I felt and thought, okay, you know what, this is valid constructive criticism. This is something that's
Mhm.
supposed to help me to grow, to help the community to grow, to make this space better, or to problem solve. And so I think that being a good listener in that way and providing opportunities for feedback, whether that's in live, in a live situation, like on a Zoom call
Mhm.
where you do a Q&A, or it's through written feedback. Any way to do that, I think, is a really good way to learn from your community and to grow with them as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And sorry, I've got beer club on the brain now because of James.
Also, I
Yeah,
am
it's
not drinking a beer. I went into
yeah, yeah,
a business conversation the other day and I was like, I can't drink this. It looks like I'm drinking an IPA. It's really it's like seltzer water or something. Sparkling water
yeah.
with tea and botanicals. So
Uh,
a little too early for the beer.
Yeah, Caitlin dropped in, and I forgot to put an emoji, so my hello to her looks very boring now. So sorry, Caitlin. What I meant to do is I meant to add my alpaca to the end of that to make it more exciting. So, anyways, yeah, yeah, she was very hurt. Yeah, sorry about that. I have a frog in my throat. Um, yeah, no, it's yeah. There's just so much that goes into it, and like you're saying about the feedback, it can feel hard, but but again, this kind of comes back to like one of the core things, which is this what's best for the community. So like, you know, um, and this ties into moderation too, which is typically volunteers, and it's like, you kind of have a consensus and stuff, and like, depends what happens, I guess, but maybe it's just like just chatting with somebody, but it could also outright be just like, sorry, that's not tolerated, period.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're out, kind of thing. So it's like, you know, it's, any kind of confrontation like that it can definitely feel awkward, or, it's like, but it comes back to like what's best for this community. Like this person might be awesome at something, but like for what's going on in the community, it's not good, so it's like, and it's tough, and especially as the community gets bigger, like I know, like when I worked at dev too, I know most people probably catching the stream are familiar with it, but it's, if anybody isn't, it's a programming community. People go to blog there and just have discussions and stuff, and like there's like a million active members on that site, and so like, yeah, James, you need custom overlays. That's why I'm using OBS. I just having fun with web tech in here. um but it's like super hard, like, because like I volunteer and moderate tags and stuff there,
Mhm.
or when I see stuff, but it's really a community effort, because like when I worked there, I definitely spent more time moderating things, but even though I was doing engineering work, but now it's like, it's when I see stuff, you know, oh, hey, like I'll flag that or something. But it's just like the tip of the iceberg. And that's why, like, you need your community to help, kind of like, you obviously at some point you find people that you trust, like on
Yeah.
dev 2 we have trusted members, like in virtual coffee, once people have been in the community for a while, if they're interested in volunteering, like there's a process for that. But it's like, it's really community led, and it's super, it's, like I said, the bigger it gets, the harder it gets potentially. And I don't know if yeah, it's Video Ninja, James. I can definitely hop on a call with you one day, if you want to see it set up and stuff. um yeah, it's just one of those things that it's tough moderating, especially when it gets bigger. And you know, I don't know if I have a solution to that, or if you have suggestions. I mean, I know there's stuff like, obviously you can have AI or some kind of moderation
Yeah.
tools in place to help, but I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that. It's like, it's definitely, people have different approaches to moderating as well. So
Yeah, well, this is a good question, and it's something that I should have said too when you asked about things when starting a community is having a code of conduct. When virtual coffee started, I talked to a friend of mine, Alex Tate, who does amazing work in the accessibility space, and I said, hey, like, I think virtual coffee is a thing. And so I'm not really sure what I should be doing. And her first recommendation was, well, do you have a code of conduct? And my background is in education. That wasn't really a thing when I was there. So code of conduct was kind of new to me. And so I took some time to work with some other people at Virtual Coffee to look over a handful of other code of conducts and figure out what worked for our community. And the nice thing
Mhm.
about a code of conduct is that it sets up expectations, and it also outlines those things like this is not an okay thing. If you do this, you're done, right? And so at Virtual Coffee, every Virtual Coffee, we start our intro, we drop the code of conduct. In our events, we drop the code of conduct. We always talk about how serious we are about that so people know like we don't tolerate this kind of behavior. We're a community of people that's open to respecting each other, learning and growing together. And when it comes down to moderation, we've been super fortunate to not have to deal with many issues. And so for us, we do have a moderation team, and a couple of the folks who are on our team actually did training with Collab Lab. I want to say the
Okay.
program they use is called Otter. Do you know, Nick?
I don't know Otter. I definitely know Collab, but don't know
Yeah, I
Otter, no.
think it's called Otter because there's a couple of different things called Otter. Anyway, Um, maybe I made it up, but I believe it is the name of an animal. It is like the AI transcription, but it is not the transcription. I really think
Okay.
that it is. Oh, now it's gonna bother me. Uh,
And it's also a cute animal,
it
so
is
there's
also
that
a
too.
cute animal.
Yeah.
Um, maybe it's Otter Tech. Yes, they do code of conduct training.
Okay.
I can drop that in the chat now. Double check with
Awesome.
Collab Lab because I hope that this is what they use. But I think that's what they are using. And the
Okay.
training is really solid. And so it's something that we appreciate that people had gone through that training, and then usually as a group of maintainers, we talk about any situations that have come up, even conversations that people have held, just so we can be aware of them, we can address
Mhm.
them. But the nice thing about our community is people are willing to talk through issues. And we've seen
Yeah.
that a number of times where there have been disagreements, and my knee jerk reaction is always to like jump in, right? And like as a parent, I think that that's also you just want to, hey, like
Yeah.
get in the middle of the situation. But um, I've been encouraged like to let people talk through this because our community
Yeah.
grows together. But certainly when you get larger, there are definite red flags that you have to put a stop to that thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for sure.
sometimes it can be a cultural issue. And so then, as a moderator, it's your job to explain that situation to someone and say, hey, this is why this wasn't appropriate in this situation.
Mhm.
It can be a learning moment. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
not okay, period, and that person is done. Like this is the behavior,
Yeah.
this is not something that we accept here, and you're not allowed in this community anymore.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the cultural differences because obviously cultures are different, and this is something I'd see. I mean, it's not just on Dev 2, but I've seen it where it's like, you know, like I always bring up the example of my cousin's wife. She's Danish and very direct, and it's not just her. Like a lot of Danes are pretty direct from what I've understood. So it's like I it's always my self-deprecating story, but like I remember her and my cousin coming over to my parents for Christmas one year, and I opened the door and she's like, "Oh hey, how's it going? Merry Christmas! Wow, you gained a lot of weight." Like that. That's like and I didn't take offense to it because I know that
Yeah,
that's how she is, but like if you take that out of context, somebody be like, "Oh my god, that person is so rude." So like, I've seen stuff like that on Dev 2 when I was been moderating stuff, and it's not because the person is being ill towards somebody. It's just like just the way they wrote it. It could also be just like English is not first language.
right.
Like not that every community is English, but like a lot of them are, like at least the ones we're involved in. So it's like it could just be even wording sometimes. So like it's definitely great to have those conversations, but like you said, obviously if there's something that's like a big red flag, you just shut it down immediately. But yeah.
There,
Yeah.
can we back up a little bit because I know that Kai had a question earlier.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It said, I found that some new members are immediately super into onboarding themselves, folks like me, while others stay more quiet. Do you feel that there's a point where this turns into lurking, or how do you bring people like that in more without putting pressure on them? And I think that's a really
Yeah.
good question. And I think, again, this goes back to what the purpose of the community is and what you want. I know that there are some communities out there that if you don't post within a certain amount of time, you get kicked out of the community.
Mhm.
But that's very clear from the onset. This is a community where you come in and where you participate and where we learn and grow in this way. And there are expectations for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's fine because the expectations are set. Our expectations at Virtual Coffee are to embrace people where they are and to allow them to participate in ways that are comfortable for them. And so we always say, or at least I always say in the breakout room, if you want to leave your cameras off, if you want to stay muted the whole time, if you want to participate in the chat, feel free to do
Mhm.
that. We'll keep up with the chat, but we want you to feel comfortable participating. And so, one of the coolest things I think I've seen as part of Virtual Coffee is there are people that come, they show up and they're there frequently and they're quiet, right?
Yeah.
And then they start talking and then oftentimes they start volunteering. It's like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that 3 months from this person because they're very quiet. Um,
Mhm.
and one of the nice things about community over the last 3 years, because of the pandemic, the tools for community building have increased so much. So
Yeah.
if you are paying for tools, some of them tell you like, hey, this person used to be active and they're not as active as they used to be. You might want to send them a follow-up email. Or this person
Yeah.
came in, they posted their intro and they haven't posted anything since. Want to follow up with them. And then there's also tools that will allow you to send messages. Maybe they've been around for a month. There's tools that will automate that message for you that say, like, hey,
Yeah.
it's been a month since you've been here. Is there anything that you like? Do you have questions? And I know that might seem impersonal, but it really makes a huge difference in a community manager's life because you can keep up
Mhm.
with so many more people and then you can engage with them in that way. And so I think that I personally am totally okay with lurkers. We had feedback at Virtual Coffee maybe last year where somebody who I had never met is, I think they were from Australia too, so very different time zones, said, hey,
Okay.
I'm here all the time. I don't really post. I just listen to what everyone says and I learn a lot, but I don't post because I'm very out of the time zone of everybody who's active and it just
Yeah.
feels weird. Um, so I did appreciate that. Oh, I don't know if I'm frozen on your screen, but it looks like I've got a heavy
I
blinking
can hear
problem there.
you, but yeah, your video's frozen, but I can still hear you. So,
Well, it's
I
not the worst face I've made while frozen, so hopefully
yeah,
it will
yeah.
resolve itself.
Cool, cool. Well, if
Uh,
you want, you can also disable your camera temporarily and re-enable it. But James is saying you're thinking so hard.
oh no,
So,
now I made another face that my camera is. Oh, I hope it doesn't show that face because this next one that's frozen is really awful. But feel free to screenshot that and use it around town.
yeah.
Totally
Welcome
fine
to
with
Meme
me.
Town.
Um, what is going on with my camera today? Let's try this again.
Yeah,
Still
I can
doesn't
still hear
work.
you crystal clear. So I think it's just a video. So,
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna mess with this and talk at the same time, and
okay.
hopefully my face will be back soon. But I think that I don't have an issue with being a lurker. I am a lurker in many different communities. And for me, that's where I'm comfortable. And I engage when I feel safe and able to do that. I think that because in communities where you can have that personal experience like Virtual Coffee where you see people, you learn and listen to each other every Tuesday and Thursday or however often you come, then it becomes much better, much easier to just kind of reach out to them and say like, hey, just wanted to check
Yeah,
in and see how you're doing, or um, encourage them in a way that you think works for
yeah.
you, what they
Oh,
have to say.
yeah. I cut you off there for a sec. Sorry. I was trying to see if I could do something to get the camera working again.
I don't even have
But
an
yeah,
option for a camera right now.
okay. Well, it's all good. Yeah, Caitlin was saying she likes the way that VC outlines different ways for people can participate. She says, I think it probably makes people more likely to participate if they explicitly know it's okay to not have cameras on, for example, or just use chat. Yeah, Kai. Yeah, Becca's in ghost mode. Oh, she's back. All
Did
right. Cool.
it. And I
Yeah.
changed my microphone. The wrong one was selected. So if it was hard to hear me, sorry about that.
Oh no, you sounded great, but yeah, it sounds even better now. So yeah, cool, cool. Um, yeah, I lost my train of thought with your camera switch there. Um, oh, James said he
I
already
think going
posted the
back to what Kai
screenshot.
said, engaging with people and just asking them questions about themselves, like, hey, how's it going? Do you
Yeah.
have any questions? Is there something that we can do to support you? And then just listening to what they have to say is more important than saying, like, hey, come do this thing. Right. And which I think that,
Mhm.
I've seen some people try that method where they just call on people. And I don't know, I taught for 10 years and there's some people that just freeze up when they get called on. And I understand that response. And so for me,
Yeah.
I'm in favor of letting people participate and gently pulling them into the situation or into the conversation by asking them questions.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And yeah, I'm still sorry, James is he said he posted the screenshot, so
Sweet.
I normally don't have problems focusing, but the chat has me losing focus today. Yeah, the thing I was gonna say is like about lurking. I think it's totally okay because like one thing we haven't really touched on this, but there's like also community overload. Like I'm in I don't know how many Slacks and how many Discords, but at the end of the day, like I have my favorites, which I will drop, and it's not because other ones aren't good. It's just these are the places that you can find me, and it's like uh I don't know. It's totally okay being a lurker because like people know you're in there. Like I was talking to Chan, the Chantastic there, and he knew that I was in lunch.dev, which is his community. Um, and and speaking of which, James has a community as well, which I joined recently. So it's not in that post I wrote yet because I'm still pretty new there, but I should probably update that with that. But Chan was like, oh, I know Nick's in here. So like if ever, just happen to want to ask him something, I know he's there. And eventually like I did start posting stuff and and so on, but there's only so much time in the day and like that's why it's like I have my air quote favorites because I can't I can't spend my time in literally like 20 discords and 20 slacks. It's like I mean, I wouldn't get anything done otherwise. So it's um but but it's still valuable being there because like even if you lurk you might occasionally chime in and say, oh hey, did you try this or whatever. And like unless it's I think like you said before, I've seen this in Slack or well, no, I might have seen it in Discord too, that where if you're inactive for a certain amount of time you get bumped. And it probably makes sense in certain contexts, like depending on what the community is for, like if they're expecting you to contribute stuff and you're just not doing anything, I totally get that. And I'm sure this is all clearly outlined when you join the community, if it's a healthy community, but
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think that having those expectations set is really important, and a couple of months ago, there's a community that I'm a lurker in, and I tried to post some content, and I couldn't post in that Discord because I wasn't considered an active member, and they sent me a message
yeah,
like, "Hey, you're not around," which I get, and I think that's totally valid, and I like it, right? Because that's not the type of community that they have there, and
yeah.
that's great to set those expectations for their members. We're here to support our active members and letting me know that was really good. And
Mhm.
another reason I like to lurk in communities is just to learn how the communities work, right? see how they engage with each other, the cool things that they're doing together, and then bring those ideas back to my own community. And
Yeah.
for me, having that experience, it's like research, right? Like you go
Mhm.
into it's field research. Is that what it's called? That's what I'm gonna
Sounds
say.
good. Stat. Yeah.
So I'm going out into the field and lurking and seeing what they're doing, and then that helps me to grow in a way that reading a blog post or even listening to a podcast episode doesn't, because I can sit
Yeah.
there and see, what makes sense. Where is the positivity coming from? How are they learning together? And so that's another reason why I think it can be valuable, because it's
Mhm.
good for members to feel supported, but as community builders, it's important for us to be able to share the experiences that are working for us to make our own community stronger, because it's not a competition who has the most people there. Well, it's not it's not for me. Anyway, it's how can
Yeah.
we make everyone feel supported? And there's a different community for every person. So, like, somebody might love virtual coffee. Somebody might come to virtual coffee and say, "This is definitely not my thing." And that's
Yeah.
totally fine. I'm not trying to make a virtual coffee fit that person. We're maintaining the organization, the community as it is, to support the existing members, and it's not going to be for everyone.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Caitlin in the chat saying, yeah, definitely being clear about expectations is key for the community and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the kind of touching on like because we do work in tech, like open source is like a community. Like I mean, the programming community is a community, and like I've worked a lot in open source. Like I've been working in it professionally since January 2020. I mean, I was contributing before that, but I have the lucky privilege of being paid to work in open source at the moment. But you know, it's the open source community it's a really interesting space because like a lot of I mean there's GitLab and stuff too, but I would say the majority of people are probably on GitHub and that's where a lot of the projects are. And having been a maintainer but also been a contributor, I'm still kind of amazed sometimes when I see stuff that people post because it's like, like there'll be things like, hey, this project is crap or it doesn't do what I need it to do, and it's like I find it really weird that entitled people come in or just crap on something that is like most likely work that's been done by people that volunteer on this or like just really enjoy it. And the thing I don't get about it, okay, sure, this person is a dickhead or whatever, but like it's publicly visible. Like, and that's the part
No
I don't
spamming,
get.
Michael.
Oh, I've got the yeah, I hear Tigress data is pretty solid. Uh, yeah, Triple B is going to be on the stream in I think early June, maybe late May. But yeah, I'm just always amazed how people publicly put these things. It's the same thing with Twitter. Like when people crap on something, I'm like, if I was an employer or like a potential coworker and I saw that, I'd be like, there's no way I want to work with this person. Like, um, but it's just an interesting space. And there's like, and I mentioned it in the blog post that I dropped a little while ago there, but like one of the communities I love a lot is open sauce. And I was speaking of lurking, I was a lurker in that community for a while. But I just really like what they're doing. They've productized something now so that it's still open source, but they're working on a product there. But I just like the vibe of the community and just how welcoming it is. And like for folks who haven't worked in open source before, it can be super intimidating. And I just love how like one of the key things that community does is it's like all about like let us help you get into open source, like we're here to get you there, you know what I mean? And that's also one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite communities too. It's just I like it, like it doesn't matter who you are. Hey, I want to contribute to open source. You're in the right place. So um Yeah, so that's open sourced. I didn't actually name the name. Sorry. I'll drop. It's in the blog post I dropped, but I'll drop it in the chat here. So just open sauce.pizza.
Yeah, they've got a lot
And
of like really great stuff that they're working on, and to see the supportive nature of the community, and especially in open source, it's something that I feel is really close to my heart because virtual coffee, I feel like really solidified the first Hacktoberfest that we worked on together. So being able
yeah,
to support contributors and maintainers and to have people learn and grow together in that way is great. And now with so many people coming into tech and with all of the layoffs that are happening,
mhm.
working with open source projects is a really great way to demonstrate whether or not you're an asshole, right? Like if you're going to go
Yeah, yeah,
criticize the PR or whatever, but it showcases that you can work with a team. It shows how you communicate with other people and how you understand looking and navigating different code bases. So I
yeah.
love that mission, and I love when communities are supportive of helping each other work on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's I, when I was speaking to Andrew Hedges from Collab Lab last week, I don't have the clip right now, but it was like people always talk about people skills or soft skills, but I like to call it don't be an asshole skill. Because again, just to my point before, it's like I don't understand why well, I understand why people are like that. People are just there's just some terrible people like that. That's the answer. But yeah, I'm still amazed that people do that. Question for you, Becca, from Triple B, aka Bald Bearded Builder. After the success of virtual coffee, have you thought about opening virtual tea or virtual water to be more to be more inclusive of people?
I think we're going with chai next, actually.
Okay. Yeah, it could be some mat. Is it mate? I used to play with one of the guys I played rugby with at university. He was from Uruguay, and so like everybody on the sidelines, like if you were subbing or just watching, you'd be drinking water, and he'd always have his mate. He had like the metal straw, and it almost. I don't know if it's from Argentina, James Mate, but it's definitely available there. So, yeah, I'm not really sure where it comes from originally, but he was always just drinking this, and it just made me think of that when. Shout out to Bernie Ackle. He's in Montevideo. Anyways, yeah, Kai say it as well. This is now a drinking. Tell us about your drink stream. Mate is the dev drink in Vienna and Berlin. I did not know that. Okay, so if I want to look cool in those two places, I'll be like, give me your finest mate, please.
Or we just
I
change Virtual Coffee's name altogether and just go to Virtual Mate.
Yeah, virtual mate or virtual liquid of your preference. We don't judge.io. I don't know. But yeah. Oh, in Germany they have Club Mate. So, all right. Cool.
Nice. And going back to what Kai said, Kevin does an amazing job with core skills in the You Got This materials
Okay,
and
yeah.
the conferences that he runs. So definitely, actually, I think I have a link up because I was on the site yesterday. Drop
Okay,
that
yeah.
in the chat.
Cool. And I'll just grab Kevin's Twitter. We follow each other. So, yeah, I've never worked with him, but you got to work with him where you were working previously, and you said they're pretty awesome.
Kevin is amazing. I learned so much from Kevin. Right now, he's at Directus. So, actually, they might still have a dev advocate role open. So, if anyone is
Yeah.
interested, check out Directus. They also have a Discord. Also,
All
we're not
right.
sponsored by Directus. So,
Yeah, exactly. Here's for anyone interested if they want to give a follow to Kevin on Twitter. Um, yeah, so I was thinking about like open source because you like obviously you work with developer communities too. Like it's one thing building something like virtual coffee in terms of like managing an open source project. Like I definitely have thoughts on this, but like you've you've maintained projects and where like even the discussions and stuff for like some of the companies you've worked at, or your own. Just wondering what your thoughts are there, in terms of like maybe not what's different. Well, maybe what's different in terms of managing like an open source project or community, or again, kind of some things to put in place there to just again hopefully set it up for success. But
Yeah. Um, so I really learned a lot the first time I started maintaining an open source project. And the projects that I've maintained have been pretty small, but I think that it goes back to that idea. It's all a community, right? And having clear paths of communication is super important. So at Virtual
yeah,
Coffee, we definitely have a link to our code of conduct. We have our contributing.md file that walks you through how to contribute to the repository and what the process is. So, we have discussions and we have issues. And so every organization is going to use that differently, but making
yeah,
sure that your contributors know how you want them to participate. Can you what is the process for creating a PR? Do you have PR and issue templates set up? Those are big ones for us as well. I really like the issue templates that we have at Virtual Coffee. And I think Dan set those up with some like cute little GIFs with the J sound. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it just kind of introduces the tone for the contributions as well. And so I think that when you have those things set up, when you let people know this is how you contribute, that might be their initial contact with you, and they understand like, okay, what are the expectations? And I guess that that's super important to anything that you do in community, and whether that's in person, online, async, making sure that expectations are clear, because that's going to help somebody to be more comfortable in contributing in the way that you expect them to contribute.
Mhm. Yeah, no, totally, totally. Yeah, and this also ties into automation that you were kind of mentioning before, where people don't necessarily like automated things because they're like, this is not a real person. But I still think it's appreciated, because, like, for example, like, shout out to my own Discord that I started. It's a super small community, but like, and I honestly, I just want it to grow organically, and I'm just having fun in it. And it's actually kind of enjoyable having a super small community at the moment. But I've already put some stuff in there to automate things. Like, on Fridays, there's I love the Mufasa. It's Friday then, so I post that, like, what was your win? Like, a lot of people post like, what was your win this week, kind of, but I post it with that video because it always makes me smile and stuff like that. But even in like open source projects, like having an autoresponder when like somebody files an issue, yes, they know it's automated, but they, like, again, it all depends on how well managed a project is. But like we automate this. Like when I worked at Dev, we do this at Netlify too, for certain projects. So it gets it on our radar. Like we have it automatically go to a triage, and then, we look at that and so on. And just other stuff like, uh, I know the I know the open sauce project. They've done a ton of automation with stuff, which, like, because Brian Douglas, who started open sauce, he used to work at GitHub, as I know and probably a few people in the crowd know. But he was big into GitHub Actions. He was like kind of like the GitHub Actions person for quite a long time, and there's just so many amazing things you can automate there. And so, like, I think these things are good to put in place when they're kind of like guardrails. They're not necessarily replacing a human, but it's like even stuff like, hey, you submitted this PR, but there's no issue attached, and you can just generate a message. Because getting to what we were talking about before about like asynchronous, and like time zones, the last thing you want to
Yeah.
do is like somebody submits something and then you have to wait a whole day till like when maybe I sign in, and then I'm like, oh, you didn't link an issue, and I can obviously respond with that. But if that's automated, it just takes something off the plate for you. And and this kind of ties into just I think automation, when used wisely, can definitely help you scale as like a community wherever that is. So I'm rambling.
No, I mean, that's absolutely right. And the other thing is, I know that a lot of people think that automation does seem impersonal, but it also allows you to have personal moments and spend more time with those personal moments, right? And so
Yeah,
if something is able to be automated and it doesn't need the human interaction component, then it allows you to put your resources in other places that you probably need to put those resources. So I also think that
yeah, for
it's
sure.
worth always thinking from the other side, the other person's perspective, like, okay, why is it set up in this way?
Yeah, no, totally, totally. Um, no, this is awesome, and I'm trying to think. So, like, we've talked about a lot about community, and like, we've touched on some core skills. Is there any other core skills like? Obviously, empathy is a big one if you're working well. Just dealing with people, like, forget community for a sec. Just dealing with people in general. Uh, Being empathetic is definitely a great skill to have. Like, that can definitely make you go a long way wherever whatever you're doing. Um, is there kind of like some other core skills you think that would, stand out in terms of, like, somebody being a great community member, or even somebody who's maintaining a community?
Well, I just want to back up for a second and talk about empathy for a minute because I recently
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
conversation on Twitter about empathy, and I can't remember exactly what was said, but I said it's a skill that you can get better at, right? And I think that there was some surprise that that was my response. It's not, yeah, maybe some people are born with empathy more than others. I don't really know, but I don't really think that that matters because you can always get better at empathy. And you
Yeah,
start getting better at empathy by listening to other people, right? And
yeah,
you're not always going to relate to that person. You're not always going to understand that experience. That's not what empathy is about. Empathy is about realizing that there's a situation that you might not understand and to think
yeah.
about how to support that person in the moment. And it's really important. So it is one of those things where you take a step back. And this goes back to the idea of, feedback and being able to talk through and have hard conversations with other people.
Mhm.
And it all kind of ties together back to my friend Kevin, who I used to work with. The
Yeah.
first time that he and I met was during an interview, and we disagreed with each other for a good portion of the interview. And it was one of my favorite interview experiences because we were
Okay.
able to listen to each other. We were able to understand each other's experiences and talk through that discussion. And we didn't come to a conclusion, I don't think, by the end of the conversation. But what we did learn is that we're both willing to listen to each other. We're both
Mhm.
willing to understand each other and that we could work together because we could have a disagreement and that would be fine.
Yeah.
And to in if you need a framework to help with listening, because it's also a skill that you can get better at. When I was a teacher, I always taught Rogerian argument. And the
Okay.
idea behind it, he comes to compromise at the end of the method. And I don't necessarily think that you need to compromise.
Yeah.
But that's an aside. But the idea is you're listening not to reply to that person, not to respond to them, but you listen to hear them. And so
Okay.
after you hear what they've said, then you repeat it back to them. This is what I hear you saying. And then you ask questions about that thing to get an understanding. And then you kind
Okay.
of look at, okay, so where do our perspectives overlap? And
Mhm.
almost always, I think you can find that there's some overlapping perspective, even if it's we're both afraid of change, right? And then continuing that conversation on the basis of we share something. At the very least, you share humanity with some other person. You might have very different perspectives on what that is, but I'm a big fan of trying to be respectful and coming to an understanding together to advance that conversation and the understanding. And so I
Yeah.
don't think that you have to agree with other people. I like to argue a lot. And so I think that it's just that, having respect for other people through listening, through understanding and not jumping to conclusions about other people.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just wanted to call out what James was saying in the chat. He was just saying just a good call out about, every quality is something that we can practice and get better at: empathy, confidence, etc. And yeah, receiving and giving feedback. And and I dropped a link to, I don't know if it's up to date, but I found a Wikipedia on the Rogerian argument. I never heard about it until today myself, so I'll check that out. But yeah, giving feedback can be tough, like, because, like, say somebody's not doing well at something, like, I don't know, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing to, well, it's my opinion, but I don't think it's necessarily good to do the compliment sandwich, like,
Yeah.
hey, great on that thing, this is terrible, oh, but this is, like, I think it's better to, and this gets back to what kind of a reoccurring thing that we keep saying, which is being clear and communicate. I'm not the biggest fan of, being the bearer of bad news sometimes, but it's also how you deliver it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could easily come into a conversation, like, say hypothetically, my coworker is doing really terrible at something. One, I have no idea why. Maybe something's going on in their life that I'm unaware of. So before I just say, like, hey Joe, this is a bang up job you're doing here. Like, does bang up mean good or bad? I mix up
I was kind of
expressions like
thinking
that
it meant
sometimes.
good, but it might,
Okay, yeah.
we'll just pretend it means bad. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I've done this too with, like, you lucked out. I used to
Yeah.
think that mean, and I'm confused again. Does it mean it's good or bad? Anyways, I digress. I digress.
That's good. You lucked out. Like, you shouldn't have
Yeah,
had luck,
yeah.
right?
See,
But you do. But also,
yeah,
doesn't quite make sense. Lucked out.
yeah. Again, and I'm questioning myself. Everything I know, I'm questioning right now. But like, say somebody's not performing well. You could go in there and say, like, you're doing terrible. This is shit. Like, if you don't, step up, you're out the door or something. Like, that's very harsh.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to go that way though. And I've worked with people where I like to think I'm somewhat bulletproof. Partially because I've been in the industry for a while, but also it's just like I have other it's not uh it's not something I'm going to worry about at the end of the day, but I have worked with people where they're just like, yeah, this is shit, like, fix that. And again, though, context matters too. Like, one of my coworkers, he just swears a lot, and especially when he gets excited. So, like, it could, so when he would say, like, oh, you gotta, like, if you'd say you gotta effing fix this, man, or whatever, I can see in his eyes he's excited, and it's just like he's not meaning it like I'm crappy. But again, context matters, and definitely if you're doing this asynchronously, like, sarcasm, jokes, and stuff never flies on chat. But anyways, but yeah, getting back to what I was saying, because I went totally off tangent there, is like, you can obviously present things in a really poor way, but you could also be like, again, bring that human aspect to it, like, hey, just kind of curious what's going on with I see you're having a bit of a rough go with this particular feature or task, like, everything okay, like, before you even dig into the, like, what happened to this code, like, and, like, you literally never know what's going on in people's lives, even if they're putting on a good face, like, you could be smiling on a camera, and, like, you could have a family member who's dying, you could just, something else in your life is going terribly. So it's like, I think just bringing that human aspect, and this really falls into, like, good teams, you know what I mean? Because, like, I've been on good and bad teams, and so, like, if you have that support structure, and people to be like, okay, well, let's talk about it, what can we improve here, or, like, how can we get you back on track, and obviously it's possible at some point, even with all that and being empathetic, it's still not working out, which is another harder conversation, I guess. But yeah, I really think it's how you can present these things that can totally change the tone. And
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a friend and I were talking about giving feedback this past weekend. And one of the things that she brought up is that your feedback should have purpose, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
I think we don't necessarily, people just talk and then it's unclear. Like, I'm not sure what you want me to get out of this message. And one, maybe
Mhm.
they don't know what they want to get out of the message, what they want you to get out of the message. But the other thing
Yeah.
might be they're trying to give you constructive criticism without making you feel bad, but you can't decode their message. And
Yeah.
so making sure that it's clear, this is what I should see, or I think we can make improvements in this way becomes really important. And I think that, starting with what you said, figuring out like where is the person at today, where are they in their lives,
Yeah.
are they doing okay? And I give a talk on the person-centered approach to tech, and that's like a
Mhm.
big part of it. You should understand them as a human being before you understand them as a teammate or um, a developer or whatever their role is, right? Because we're complex and we do
Yeah.
things in different ways and in different times. And if you have a positive atmosphere, and if you're in a positive situation, you're way more likely to give positive results in that situation. So checking on them personally, making sure that they're okay is really
Yeah.
important. And not just in those moments, not just when they're struggling, right? Like there should be some kind of check-in. Hey, how you doing? That should be a
Yeah.
regular thing to build that relationship so they have the confidence to be honest in the conversation when they're struggling and they're not doing so well.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you because I know, like you said, you gave that talk. It's not the Bob Ross talk, right? That's something else, or is that it?
That's a different that is the joy of dev life, and that I gave as a lightning talk at Virtual Coffee, so and I think I
Okay.
actually gave that for Magnolia JS when it was online one year. They needed an
Yeah, because
extra person.
I found the Bob Ross guide on the Magnolia site, but I was
That's
just trying
probably
to find that.
the better version of it, so
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll try and find it after, or maybe you can share it with me. I'll put it in the in the description of YouTube and Twitch after with the link to the talk
cool.
there. Um, cool, cool. I did have something open somewhere. Where did it go? Yeah, I think there's just a lot of great chatter in the chat today. Um, yeah, so
James says,
I
"Becca, argue no way." What?
yeah, yeah. Well, and the thing too is like arguing isn't a bad thing. Like I don't know, like it depends what you mean by argue. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you don't mean argue by like screaming at each other.
Mm-mm.
Like just healthy debate, I guess.
Yeah.
But because like I definitely don't like arguments like screaming at somebody. Like, well, maybe I don't think a lot of people do probably, but I'm sure there's some people that do. But yeah, like we have this philosophy at work at Nullify, which is I, I'm not gonna say it correctly at the moment because it's escaping me. But basically, like you know, everybody gives some input on something. I might think this is the right way, but like the team overall decided like this is what we should do. And even though I don't agree necessarily, I still need to commit to it and go with it, Like we've given all our points and stuff, but like at the end of the day, this is what was decided, whether it's a good or bad decision
Yeah.
is for the future to tell, but we just kind of go with it, And I I think that makes sense too, and like I'm thinking this because at the end of the day, like somebody has to make the call on something, and like it's kind of like I don't know. Apologies for bringing in a sports analogy, but like I've been like the captain on my rugby team for a few teams, and it's like when something stops, you make the call. Yeah, let's kick it, or let's do this instead, and it's like I made the wrong decision many times,
Mhm.
but like it's just like okay, but we're doing this, and so it's like you just kind of go with it, and if something didn't work out, there's also this is a kind of touching in on like it being a safe space, like even at work, it's like and it's not just Netlify that does this, but people will have retros or like when an incident occurs, it's not a blame game. It's just like this is what happened.
Yeah.
We did this, and like what can we improve or how can we avoid this next time? And there's no blame game, which I think is healthy. Like maybe there's at some point like it's always this person, but then that's a whole other conversation, right? Like, but I like how it's just okay, let's just talk about what happened, and okay, so I think we can sort this out for next time so it doesn't happen. And I know I'm kind of talking about maybe more code and process here, but I think it still kind of ties into community related stuff, because like even your company, like if you want to drop it, you dropped a blog post today, I think, about like culture.
Yeah.
That's why it kind of got me thinking about it. I'm also all about promoting Bekah today, so just drop all your links, Bekah. Um, but yeah, no, I think just having that good environment, knowing like, okay, hey, I screwed up, but like, there's not this fear factor of like, I'm going to get fired. It's just like, okay, this is what happened. Let's sort it out. And, I think that's healthy.
Right. And your team is way more likely to innovate and take chances and to make big gains when they feel comfortable in an environment. And that sets up a good environment for them to experiment in. I talk about it in my storytelling
Mhm.
talk, but the senior director of innovation, I think, at PayPal has a miniature failure museum on campus.
Okay.
And the
That's
reason
cool.
is not to, like, blame people, but it's to
Yeah.
explore the failures that they've had and to also see how far you've come in that situation, right? And so
Okay.
when
Yeah.
you kind of, like, honor or cherish those moments where things didn't work out, then it empowers people to say, like, "All right, it's okay if I don't get something wrong or don't get something right." And when you
Mhm.
do get something wrong, then you're not going to be blamed for it. You set up a growth mindset in your organization that allows you to grow and learn from that situation.
Yeah. No, for sure. No, I love that. Cool, cool. I'm just doing a time check here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got like about 13 minutes, so we still got a bit of time here. It's always I always know it's a great conversation when I have no idea how much time has passed. Like when I was talking with Andrew Hedges last week, it's like he wanted to show something and we were already at 2:30, and I was like, I mean, we went a bit longer just cuz, but it's just nice, like just always good when it's great conversation. Um, uh, James is saying in the chat too, if you can celebrate failures and use them as learning opportunities, it's amazing what people can do. Yeah, totally. Like, you know, I can't say that that works as well in my own personal life, because like I do screw up things a lot sometimes, but in a work context, yeah, no, totally.
Well,
Uh,
and the thing is too, depending on what type of failure it is, you can apologize, right? And I actually
yeah,
have a talk called How to Apologize for You Got This. So you can check that out on their site. But the point is
yeah,
sometimes there are things that we've done wrong. And going back to our code of conduct conversation before, maybe you did screw
yeah,
up, or like I certainly as a community builder have screwed up. And I think I say in the talk, I'm like, I am a community maintainer. I have a job. I have 4 kids and I am a wife. I have had plenty of opportunities to mess things up and to
yeah,
apologize. And it can be hard, but one of the things is, and this goes back to core skills too, I think it's good to know how to apologize. If you've
yeah.
done something that has impacted somebody negatively, then there's no shame in apologizing to that person and giving them the opportunity to respond if they want to. And being sincere in that apology, right? It's not, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
but I was tired, or but I was sick. And like, I do that
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time. So I'm not like getting on my high horse here. Like, you can ask my husband. I'm not the best person
yeah.
at apologies. Um,
Yeah, I
but it's
struggle with this too in personal sometimes. It's like in the heat of the moment, I'm trying to
yeah.
apologize, but I'm still kind of angry. So
Yep.
like and then it's like it doesn't sound genuine. I'm like, and then I'm like, well, whatever. Like, anyways, I don't want to, I don't want to derail this, but yeah, no, it's something.
It's a
Uh,
skill, right? Like, you
yeah,
learn how to apologize, and sometimes it starts very manufactured in how you do the apology, but I'm sure everyone will get better at it because we all have opportunities to do it probably every day.
yeah. James saying, please tell me more about your combos. Yeah. Yeah, no. But yeah, no, for sure. And I think the other thing too, we haven't really touched on it, but like we've been talking about like managing a community, how to make a great community, some tools to put in place. Um, I think another thing that's great is like I kind of touched on this when I was talking about Mufasa Friday then and like what's your win and stuff and I know that's not unique to me doing that. Like I know you've been doing this in the virtual coffee community for quite a while. Like a couple things. One, like kind of like a check-in, and it's the same message all the time, but people don't take it as something generic. It's just like on Wednesdays you'll say like, "Hey, midweek check-in. How's everybody doing?" You know, and it I like it because it's not necessarily like a, "Hey, is everybody falling apart?" kind of question. It's more like it could be, "Hey, I'm doing great," or, "Things are going well, but I'm kind of super tired," or it could be like, "Hey, yeah, I'm kind of bummed out about something," but it's kind of a spectrum of stuff. But and then like, just on the Fridays, I think celebrating wins or just like putting I don't think it's good to celebrate people for any reason. Well, it's good to celebrate people, but I mean, not. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's healthy to say "great job" when
Yeah.
nothing really has been done. But definitely when people have done something, it's like, "Hey, man, like that was awesome." Great stuff. It's kind of one of the favorite things I like to do at work too. We have like a thanks channel or like a shout out channel, but even just like when my coworkers do good work, I like to say, hey, like my coworker Rob today has been working on something that's been taking a while, but it's a super important thing, and he got it wrapped up today before he goes on vacation, and it's like just like, yeah, awesome stuff, man. Emojis and all that stuff, and it's I don't know, it just, well, one, it makes me feel good to just say, "Hey, great stuff," and it's also great to see people doing well, but, I think it's I think it's just a healthy thing to say, "Hey, like, great job on that," instead of just ignoring what people are doing, like, because yeah, I guess, people could make the argument that, "Yeah, but that's your job, you do that," right? But I don't know, you know? I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I know
Well,
some
I mean, I think
people,
it is
yeah.
like it is a form of feedback, right? And it's a positive form of feedback, but also appreciation. And
Yeah.
that, you know, it we often work hard and our hard work is overlooked. And
Mhm.
that can be hurtful, or things are moving so quickly that people forget to say, "Hey, good job," or "Thank you." And those are really important opportunities to connect with other people, and it's not that hard, right? It's a simple
Yeah.
way to show appreciation for someone else and to let them know that you think that they did a good job. And I'm with you on, don't say it for no reason, because words matter and they're impactful. If you use those
Yeah.
words all the time, then they lose their value. Okay, so say it when it's valuable
Yeah.
and when it's meaningful, not just to say it. Like, empty words are not useful.
Yeah. No, totally, totally. Yeah, and, Caitlin in the chats, oh, she dropped the, "How to
Yeah, she dropped it.
apologize" from "You Got This." Yeah. No, it definitely makes a difference, and I agree with you. I'd be hypocritical if I said, like, I'm an amazing apologizer, but, it's something I have to always work on, we're people, we make mistakes,
Yeah.
maybe
It's
more
okay to make
frequently in
mistakes, right?
personal
Because we
life, but
are people. If you didn't make a mistake, then I mean, you wouldn't even be Chat GPT, because Chat GPT makes mistakes all the time too. So,
yeah, yeah, exactly, and, yeah, no, for sure. Um, yeah, so we've got, like, a few minutes here still, I don't know, to kinda wrap things up, like, I'm gonna drop links where people can find you again. Um, so, like, you've been blogging a lot lately, I know, your YouTube channel's in there too, in the link I just dropped. I know you've been doing consulting now, and so you've got all this blog post, not blog post series, YouTube series out on community. I'll try and find that directly, but I've been enjoying them. Like, I'm a fan of yours, so like I'm slightly biased, but I think they're great, and they're like bite-sized that's not like a 2-hour thing about like how to make an impact in a community. So definitely check out Bekah's channel there too.
Thanks.
Kind of curious for like, we're definitely not mid-year yet, but spring's coming. Just wondering if there's anything exciting going on in like say virtual coffee or stuff you're excited about. I know, yeah, just I guess kind of. I mean, I'm in virtual coffee, so I usually know what's going on it. But like we have like a monthly challenge coming out. I guess is it every month we do it? I can't remember. My
We
brain is
do
sizzling at this point.
because it's a monthly challenge. So
Yes, thank you.
Um,
Getting my brain
this
to work again.
this month we're ending the month with lightning talks, so we're really excited to have those at the end of the month. And next month will be our because it's our virtual coffee birthday / anniversary, whatever. We do the community kindness challenge, and it's all about representing the values of our community and supporting other people. So pretty excited for that. Never ever would have thought in April of 2020 that we would be
Yeah.
where we are now. And I mean, I might have some other exciting news, but I can't drop it on the live stream right now.
Oh no, that's all good. That's all good. That can be a good cliffhanger so that we can tune in another day. But no, that's great. Yeah, I just want to say like, what's that? I didn't see the
James in
conversation.
the chat. Why do you
Oh yeah.
make me wait?
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Cliffhanger. But no, on a
James, wait a minute.
person.
This is just payback, right? Because when we keynoted that conference,
Yeah.
you teased a big announcement before. I was the only one that didn't have a big announcement, remember? So maybe
Uh,
I might have a big announcement sometime soon.
there you go. You heard it here first. Maybe big announcement. But yeah, I just wanted to say as we wrap up. Well, one, uh, like we kind of alluded to at the beginning, but like meeting people online during the pandemic, like you're definitely one of my really good friends now, and that wouldn't have happened if something like virtual coffee didn't come around. Um, it's it's such a great place, and I love all the work you're doing in community. And James is DMing you.
Yeah, I can hear my Discord beeping because I don't know how to turn off the sounds. Stop it.
Yeah, I had to do that the other day because I was streaming, and I keep Discord open because I was on call, so just in case something really went sideways, and it kept going ding ding ding
Yeah,
ding, and I'm streaming, and then I'm like I just closed it at one point. But there is this, if you go into the Discord settings under notifications, you can just say turn off sound. But
because I
anyway.
remember to turn off notifications like on my MacBook, right? Like I put it in focus mode, but Discord still gets through.
Yeah, James saying the auto mod is yeah, I've got this shields mode on in the Twitch chat. Maybe it's a little overkill, I don't know. But anyways. Um but yeah, no, yeah, just I love everything you've been doing in community, and just love the work you keep doing there, and excited to see where you take this work. Still, virtual coffee is still growing. If people are interested, I do have some invites. If folks in the chat aren't part of virtual coffee, if you're interested, just drop me a message. um, Aside from that, yeah, anything else before we kind of call it a day? We're pretty much right on time.
We
That
did it.
rarely happens. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And I just like a big thank you in general for all of your support over the last 3 years. One of the greatest parts of virtual coffee is meeting new people, but like learning from them. And you've been an invaluable friend and resource to me over the last couple of years. So very much
Uh-oh.
appreciate it, Nick.
Didn't say I was gonna cry on stream, but Becca might make it happen. Okay, all right. So we'll definitely have to cut out in a second. Yeah, no, appreciate it, and yeah, same right back at you. It's always great. I always love it when we have our conversations. It's just always something I look forward to. Yeah, awesome. I'm just gonna drop next week. We have. I'm just gonna double check in the schedule here. I'll drop it in Twitch there. I'm pretty sure, is it? And Oh yeah, yeah. Next week, it's gonna be a interesting stream. It's gonna be making and learning with Andy Piper. Andy Piper's a DevRel tinkerer. They used to work at Twitter, but Twitter is in the state that we all know it's in. So I'll just leave it at that. But we're gonna be doing some interesting stuff there. So we might touch in on some IoT stuff and like just have some fun with stuff I've never used. I know a bit of Python, but we're going to be just building out something fun with like IoT devices and stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that. So check that out next week and just check out the full schedule. We've got a bunch of great folks coming on in the next couple months. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, thanks again, Becca. Always love hanging out. And yeah, if you don't mind just staying on for a sec. And for everybody else, take care. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see y'all next week.